Alrighty, so here we are in cruise. I'm going to show you how to do a VNAV descent all the way down to the runway. So, a couple of things I wanted to show right now is, well, you can see the TOD marker, so that's where your descent will begin. So you'll get a TOD every time that the aircraft levels off for a constraint. You won't get one, obviously if you're going to be in VPath all the way down, it's not going to show you a TOD because you've already passed it. So you'll see that thing pop up here and there. And you also get the TOD display here that will come up when you get within a minute of the descent, and then it'll start to flash when you need to start down in about 5 seconds. Alright, so we'll go ahead and look at these constraints real quick. Give you a brief overview of how they work and how you can input it, and we'll kind of supplement what you're going to see in the PDF guide. So here we got Bucko. So it's going to cross Bucko at flight level 310, so that's a hard constraint. That means it's going to cross exactly at it, or you can't be above or below it basically. We got the next one, so Duran is going to be below 31,000 and above 27. So depending upon the conditions, VNAV is going to calculate the path and try and give you a nice smooth 3-degree path all the way down. So in this case, we might cross Bucko at 31 and then start down. We might even cross Duran at 29,000 feet if we need to, make a constraint later on down the road. So you might not always cross the constraint exactly at the above or exactly at the below. It depends on the conditions. But if you're on the VNAV path, everything should be okay. So if we wanted to cross Bucko at 32,000, we can go ahead and just type 32,000. We can type FL320. Whoops, maybe not that way. But you can type 32,000 and it will automatically throw it in there for you. So in this case too, any number below 500 is going to be automatically interpreted as a speed. So in that case there you saw it, so 180 knots will be thrown in there as well. But if you wanted to put in an altitude that is below, an altitude that's 500 feet or below, you'd have to put a slash in there so it knows to differentiate it. So there's 400 feet, looks pretty good. There's 8,000 feet, see it's automatic. And if you want to cross a fix 8,000 above, you can do that. 8,000, whoops, keep typing too many. 8,000 below. And you can see it's recalculating the VNAV path for this. But we'll go ahead and put it back to 32,000. Oh, I'm sorry, it was 310. There we go. Now it should recalculate. There we go. And it's good. And nothing was going to happen because we're not in VNAV yet. But for right now, VNAV doesn't really care about the speeds. I'm not even sure if it even if it would go into flight level change for that. But a little bit later on, what would happen is you'll see a little speed icon come up here, or a little message saying, "Hey, you're too fast," or check your speeds and things like that. So that's mostly what VNAV would do for in that sense, because there's no auto throttles in this jet. So what this is going to do, this is going to take us all the way down. It's going to come right here, Freedom, that's the last part of the arrival, and then I went right to the RNAV 15. And you see it's got a couple above constraints. And then right here it's showing the runway, and the runway has 62 feet in there. So the way that was calculated, the sim is automatically detecting the airport elevation and adding 50 feet to that, which is basically going to give you a 3-degree slope all the way down to the runway. So in theory, you could pretty much let the airplane crash into the runway for you. Maybe not crash, but it's going to level off at 62 feet. You could even put 0 in there if you wanted to, but it might mess it up a little bit. So if you had a runway, you could find the airport elevation, add 50 feet to it, and it'll give you a VNAV path, pretty much an LPV approach to any runway anywhere in the world. So that is very useful to have if you wanted some guidance. Pretty much make your own approach. Alright, so let's go ahead and get a little bit closer to the TOD. I'm going to show you some of the markers that come up and show you a little bit more and show you what it looks like. Alright, so we're back, and so what we're going to do, we're coming up to the TOD here. What we're going to want to do is put it in the bottom of the altitude of the star. Well, in this case, we just want to go all the way down to the runway in case, let's just say we just got cleared all the way down. Go ahead and dial this all the way down. You can put in 0 if you wanted to. You generally wouldn't do that in the real world, but I'll go ahead and, yeah, we'll leave it at 0. And then now we'll go ahead and put it in VNAV. you'll see that now we have V out. The path just became armed. We're getting close to the TOD. You can see that our constraint is now shown here, which is up here, which is the flight plan target altitude. And it's going to show right here. So that's going to be the next constraint it's really worried about. The little pink donut here is our minimum vertical speed to be able to meet that constraint. And it will change slightly here and there. And then once we get within a minute, there we go. Our TOD pops up. We're within 1 minute of the descent. You can see our path. Actually, maybe not 1 minute, but it's getting close. Maybe a little bug there. So this is our snowflake, and it's our VNAV vertical deviation. So once this comes close, you can see we're at 5 seconds of the path. There we go. It's armed V path. Going to slow down a bit. So V path is now in the active mode, and it's got out V armed. And again, out V stands for it's arming altitude hold for the vertical constraint, which is 31,000. If this were to say out S for, or it's going to mean altitude hold for the pre-selector, which is right here. But that's not what it's doing in this case, so it's out V. And it depends on the star, but most stars are generally built where you can kind of take a 3-degree path all the way down. I'm not sure if this one is exactly. It's the Freedom arrival into DC, and we got to pair with the RNAV 15, so it should take us all the way down to the runway. Alright, we're back again on the arrival just brought us all the way down, and we can go ahead and see now we have LPV term, so that means we're within 30 miles of the airport for an LPV on an RNAV approach, and that means that our needles have now gotten a little bit more sensitive. I think it's 1 nautical mile sensitivity now, and I think it gets further, 0.3 nautical miles once you get kind of a little bit later onto the approach. So let's go ahead and have a look. We're still in V path with our altitude V in arm mode, so that's 2,500 feet. As you can see, nippy. We're going to cross that at 2,500. And then we've got a vol next at 2,000. And then we're going to take a 3-degree path all the way down to the runway. Alright, so now we are in altitude capture mode for 2,500. It's got the path armed. As you can see, our TOD coming up to cross a vol above 2,000. Now that we're on the approach segment, you can just go ahead and press approach. You can see that we've got approach is active, and we've got the GP, which is the glide path, which is the RNAV version of the ILS glide slope. So we've got that armed. You can see we still have the TOD coming up here. Everything looks pretty good, and our flight plan target altitude still 2,000. You can see the deviation starting to come in a little bit. There's the TOD flashing. Now we've captured VGP, so we're still in VNAV, but the glide path is armed. And it'll take this all the way down to 62 feet. There's the turn to final. See the runway. And we've got 62 feet set in there. Should actually say runway, but we'll get that another time. Let's go ahead and throw the gear down. Oops, I should set minimums too. I don't even know what they are, but say it's 200 feet. 210, there we go. Course off slightly, but I think we should manage for now. And now you can see we're in LPV approach mode, so the needle is definitely a lot more sensitive now as well.
Altitude.
There's a 1,000-foot call. Go to flaps 3, or sorry, flaps full. I'm not sure if this approach is actually lined up with the runway or not.
500.
500 call out. There's our minimums marker. Slightly below.
Minimums.
There's the minimums, and you can go ahead and land if you want to. I think it's just going to level off. See what it does. It's starting to transition to the airport. Okay, well there you go. That's when you would disconnect their minimums, and so that's how you shoot an RNAV and on a VNAV descent.